Very good evening, everyone, and hope you're doing well. On another Tuesday, we are back with another edition of Wellness Changemakers Leadership Edition, where every week we bring you some of India's top business leaders to talk about empathetic work culture and high performance at the same time in organizations. We are very, very honored today to have someone that I know that I'm a big fan of Miss Sairee Chahal, who's you know who's gracious enough to uh, take time out to join us today for this session. Thank you so much for joining us today, Sairee.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. I'm also a big fan of the work you guys do.
Thank you so much. I know that everyone in the office must be smiling right now hearing that. Yeah, before I start, I really want to take the opportunity to tell you a little bit more about Sairi from the little that I know. And of course, we'll be talking about her more during this session. So, Sairi Chahal is the founder and CEO of SHEROES, the world's largest online ecosystem for women, comprising the SHEROES app, Baby Gogo, Shiko, Shiro's Money, Mars by Shiro's, and Nari.com. The network has a national and global footprint of 21 million women. That is amazing. She's also on the board of directors of Paytm Payments Bank and Milan Foundation, and on the advisory board of a US-based initiative which is called Women in Cloud. She has an MPhil from the prestigious Jawaharlal Nehru University, JNU, New Delhi, and a PGDBM from the prestigious IMT Ghaziabad. She's an Aspen Leadership Fellow and a Cartier Award alumni. In a personal capacity, Sairi has mentored hundreds of women entrepreneurs and continues to do so to help strengthen the women-led entrepreneurship ecosystem. This is something that, of course, for us also, this really ties up with us as well. It's something that we can relate to because we are a woman-led organization as well. We have Richa, who's a founder and CEO. So we're really, really honored to have you here today. Um, to start with, yeah, just tell us about how are things. How hope everything's well at your end. Everything's going well in the midst of whatever crazy times that we are in right now.
Right. So I think I'll be honest in saying that things are a little bit of a mixed bag. I think everyone's seen so much of grief this year. The second wave was beyond anything that uh, we've imagined, and they're still all, we're still at home. We're still sort of restricted, not traveling, not meeting our friends and family as we would like. So it is something that one can't just sort of like shed away. But I think as a founder in the Indian ecosystem who's seen it grow, uh, it's a good time. I think we are seeing certain signs of maturity in the ecosystem. These are things that one had imagined, but now one is seeing them happen. And of course, I think as Cheers, we're excited as a company in terms of the opportunities that are opening up. So I guess it's really a mixed bag. I wish there wasn't so much of pain that everyone went through, but here we are, and hopefully people will feel better and there'll be better times ahead.
So glad to hear that. Everyone who has joined us, we will be opening to the floor for your questions too, near the 20-30 minute mark. So please keep your questions ready and feel welcome. You're most welcome to enter them in the comment section right now, also, if you would like to. Um, Getting to the topic at hand, Sari, tell us a little bit about what do you think empathy is?
Well, I think very simply put, it's just the ability to be able to see the person next to you, right? Uh, there is there's this Ubuntu saying, I am because we are," and I think the pandemic showed us very clearly we are not disconnected. In Hindi they say "Sab taar jude hue hain." So empathy is really being able to understand that uh, it's the same source code, and I can look at this from another person's viewing point rather than my point of view. So just being able to recognize that uh, we're all the same actually.
Thank you so much. I think that's a beautiful way to put it. You've developed a whole community, right, using empathy, the whole Sheroes community. In fact, I've seen that even in the job requirements that you post from Sheroes end, empathy is usually one of the required skills that is listed. I want to understand what effect does having an empathetic workforce have in terms of the work culture at Sheroes?
Right. So I think before I tell you a little bit about what work at Shiro's look like, I think look, uh, our work is actually building what I call women's internet. And just to give you a little context, when I first started Shiro's, there were 10 million women in India who were broadly online. And today, there are 350 million women who've come online in the last, 4 or 5 years. Uh, what that means is that these are first-time internet users. These are also women you and I know in our daily lives. So think of Sri Devi in English, or think of uh, Dolly Auntie from Vicky Donor, or think of Bareli Ki Barfi. These are women you and I know. Uh, but I think the thing is that internet is great for geeks, but it's a little intimidating for first time users. The language of internet is English. There's a lot of spam. There's a lot of trolling. Imagine putting an unpopular opinion on Twitter, like you'll be taken down before
Oh,
you
yeah.
can see the comment. So, uh, so a lot of our users are first-time internet users. These are women who are they're all in search of um, their emotional and financial identities. They're all aspiring women of India. They want better lives. They want better opportunities to earn and learn. And to make any of that happen, we need a safe space. So, what is a safe space? A safe space is a place where we're not judged for who we are, how we dress, how we speak, what is our social standing, what's our economic strata, what's our age. Uh, and if you see, I think a lot of internet is highly judgmental, right? It's full of filters. Uh, it's full of these benchmarks you have to cater to, right? Uh, which are uh, which are scary if you're not one of them, right? So therefore, in order to create a safe, non-judgmental, high-trust experience of the internet, uh, we need to understand what that means in the first place. So a large part of our job at Shiro's, both for folks who are front facing, talking to users or building content, or folks who are building technology, I think they need to sort of be able to recognize and appreciate this fact. Who's our real user? How do we serve her? What do we do for her? And
Yeah.
are we willing to step in her shoes? Are we willing to uh, appreciate the life that she has? So that's why we're sort of very committed to saying, hey, we need people who get this. We need people who can you know uh, who can do their job without judging our user at all. And our job is to create the safe space. So empathy is kind of a core value for us then.
And how do you think, what do you think is the effect of that on your day to day work culture at your organization?
Right. So I think first of all, it's a very unassuming work culture. Like it doesn't. There's absolutely no chest beating. Also, our gender ratios are we're a women's organization, so there are more women at work than men. Very rare in tech. Uh, Second, I think it kind of is a very let you be culture. Like sometimes I do think that we overplay the idea of what HR can do for me and what letting people be can do for you, right? So I do think most people want to derive fulfillment from their jobs, but they also want to enjoy the rest of their lives. They want to be whole. They obviously want to be uh, engaged meaningfully, but after a point in time they want to be left alone. So I think the work culture at Shiro's is very representative of that. We also believe in uh, what we call modularization of work, which means that we all have different gears in our life. Sometimes we're in top gear, and sometimes we just want to go on the first gear. So we have folks of all shapes and sizes, of all life streams, who work with us. So there are folks who are doing an X task. They just do that one job and they are out of the door. But then there are people who are what we call core teams and leaders, who own the narrative, who own the mission, who own responsibilities. So I think that's kind of very important to us to say what is your pace in your own life, and can we match that as an organization? And of course, I think the most important is be a listening organization. So this whole idea of empathy is just to make sure we're always listening, and that's very, I think, rampant across the organization. There's so much of there's so many channels where this conversation is happening almost in real time all the time, sometimes almost annoyingly, I have to confess. But that's the heart of who we are and what we do.
Thank you so much for that. And, I'm very curious that in these times of remote work, I know that before we started, you were mentioning that there's no more Sheroes physical office anymore either. So, how has this culture been helpful in these times of remote work?
Actually, we've always been a fan of remote work. In fact, we were the first company in India to go out and talk about remote work. I set up a company called Flexi Moms, and then of course we started Sheroes. And one of the missions of Sheroes was flexible work. Of course, at that time the adoption was very poor, and people used to think we're only doing this as a favor to women and things like that. But as a company, we were always set up for remote. In fact, even pre-pandemic, 50% of our workforce was remote and distributed, and most of our systems were online. Like, so when we, like, of course, office was great because you could have chai and samosa every day, and you could order food, and you could have parties in office, and you could. It was more for camaraderie and seeing your colleagues, and a lot of whiteboarding chatter, which we totally had a blast doing. But the systems were set remotely, so reporting, and, like, I mean, we've been using Slack ever since we've existed. We've been online; all our systems are online, so we didn't need a lot of going on offline effort. But one does miss, being able to sort of see colleagues. One does miss being able to travel to other cities and meet colleagues. So that obviously is a big miss. But as a company, we're very remote friendly. We, in fact, run a business line called Mars by Sheroes, which is managed remote solutions by Sheroes. We actually help companies set up large remote workforces. So it's really something we believe in.
Thank you. And, that also brings me to my next question, which was I read this article that you had written. And you had mentioned that this pandemic has presented a unique opportunity for organizations to achieve gender parity. Could you explain that a little more?
Absolutely. Look, I mean, how many women we know who are homebound because either they're the primary caregiver, or the commute is hard, or they have a child at home and no babysitting arrangements. Uh, so I do think, and look, the fact is that there are more women outside of core metro locations. I mean, Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad can only take on as much. So
Yes.
clearly there are a lot of smart people who don't live in these five cities, right? So how are we ever going to work with them, or how are we ever going to sort of get them on board? So I do think that there is merit in thinking about what is the opportunity the pandemic has presented us, and if we're going to go back to the same old ways of high commutes and sort of lack of uh, lack of modularization in work, uh, it is we're going to be back to square one. And but I do think this is an opportunity, one, to bring in very, very diverse pools of talent for companies, and also for really smart people to find work whenever wherever they are. It doesn't, your location shouldn't be a constraint at all. I mean, we've been the outsourcing hub of the world. Like, how is it that we can't adopt remote work?
Absolutely. The I think even in the coming future is going to be hybrid, even after this pandemic is over, right? Um, if you look at the leaders of today and tomorrow, and when it comes to say the bottom line that I want to create an organization that runs smoothly and at the same time my employees feel cared for. Uh, what are the unique set of skills that are required of these leaders to be able to achieve this in your experience and opinion?
Right. I think as a leader, one of the fundamental learnings is that uh, you're going to fail every day. You've got to be very humble because you're going to eat that humble pie every day. Like you're going to fall on your face a lot, especially if you're a technology company or if you're a company that works in one of these volatile sectors. So there is a lot of that. Hey, uh, we got to be flexible and we got to learn. And I do not know all the answers. I think there was a time when whatever was, it was a lot of command and control and a lot of like top down management styles were in order. But I mean, how can we expect that to work in this day and age, and especially in very fast changing environments, in in highly disruptive industries, and of course in business models that are still emerging. We don't even have a playbook anywhere in the world for some of these business models. So they're emerging in India. So we got to be very, very like we got to be very open. We got to keep keep that in mind. And I think second is just uh, you know there's a huge conversation about consistency compounds when I totally believe that over a period of time it, it does compound we are seeing it now play out in so many use cases, but specifically as leaders I think uh, you know the that superman aura of leadership. I think it's very nice in Marvel movies and in superheroes hero movies, but it's not it's not realistic. So in some ways, being able uh, to be real and vulnerable is a very very core value. I think, especially in a highly remote first, diverse, globalized, fast changing world. And third is of course I think uh, just the idea of um, you know doing things with doing things like small experiments, like experimental control, as I would like to call it. There is no way that a company that's a growing company or that's sort of figuring out things in a market that's highly evolving can know all the answers. So being able to run quick and dirty experiments, and that's where a lot of fun is, right? Like that you can run a lot of quick and dirty experiments and learn a lot very, very quickly. And that sort of learnability is really the growth mindset we're looking for. And I think once you do it as a leader, you kind of also making space for everyone to bring their narrative, everyone to be part of the same story, everyone to bring their ideas to the table. So I do think, I mean, these are not, the traditional values, but I think being flexible and being experimental, and of course, uh, being being open to the ideas of the world are very, very important traits.
Um, in your vast experience and without naming names, are there any examples of this that you can give? That a sort of a shining star. This is what it'll be great if more leaders were like this. Any anecdote, any example that you could give us?
There are some amazing companies, and I'm going to take names like, it's all right. Look, I think, first of all, the companies like Chobani. Chobani just went IPO. The company that said that we are going to make sure that we have a large social heart. It's one of the few companies that took a stand on immigration and it employs a large number of immigrants in its factories. And I think basically being open in a very rigid sort of, I mean, we all know that it's hard to get visas in US and things like that, right? So we all know that that part of a very difficult problem, and nobody in the industry has ever, gone and said we're going to do something about it. Or a company like Patagonia, and then of course there are tons of other examples. Of course, I think a lot of lot of examples in India as well. I'm not going to take names. Some of them are semi-ruled right now. But I do think that there are some companies who got that mix very very well. I think the assumption that you you can't you can't have a large heart and still be commercially viable is is kind of like very rampant. Like, I think we do promote a lot of asshole behavior in business success, and I think at some point, that needs to be called out as well.
Thank you so much for really, really sharing that in no uncertain terms. And I'm glad that we've already started receiving some questions as well. And since we are already talking about the hybrid model, I would like to take this question up before I move on to my own questions. So Kritivasan Venkatramani shares that if work from home is the norm forward or hybrid model, it means more flexibility and opportunities for people to move from one organization to another at a more rapid pace than before. What more can organizations do to retain that talented workforce? Will this be the biggest challenge HR at all companies face?
Right. So I do think it is going to happen, and it's already happening. And any system that can be abused will be abused. I mean, work from office was equally abused. We all know this, right? But I think this is an opportunity for companies to really think about modularization of work, bringing in what we call result only work environment and asynchronous work. And I also think we are also, because, that era of social security, jobs where you were married to the organization, like, our parents' generation, my dad worked for the same organization for his entire life, like, the idea of moving then cross his mind. But I mean, look at all of us. We're jumping jobs, left, right, and center, and I don't think we're going to slow down. What will happen, in fact, is uh, we're going to see a dating model of jobs, and what I mean by that is that, hey, this is my core skill, and this is what I can do for the organization. But it may also happen that I may officially do it for three organizations or two organizations. So in some ways, we are truly entering the era of gig work, modular work, a result only work environment, more consulting gigs, more freelancing gigs, more stage based work, right? So, and I think what companies need to care for is, are their core team members truly aligned to the mission, and not just by giving them BMW bikes? I don't think you'll be able to buy off all employees. You'll be able to buy off some, but I do think there's an opportunity for companies to really find mission alignment. And look, if people are high integrity, they care about the mission, it doesn't matter where they work. Work from home is not causing this. The fundamental distress is happening because there is a fundamental gap. That gap was nicely covered when you could call people to office and run them like school children. But the reality is, we are in a different time now, and companies will have to think hard about what makes people care about their work, what makes them do their jobs better. Is the mission strong enough? Are you investing in your culture? Are you the kind of organization people are going to, really care for? Or is the relationship purely transactional? And if it's purely transactional, I think we're going to see emergence of a lot of these transactional formats where it doesn't matter to me what's really going on with the organization. I'm going to just deliver on an assignment, and that's really it. But we're going to definitely see rise of more asynchronous work and result only engagements. It's inevitable for the best in class companies. They will continue to nurture their culture. They will continue to uh, think about people as people and build their communities for the long term. And not every employee who leaves you is your enemy, and not everyone who's sitting inside is really like your best friend. I think we got to give up these notions of organization building that are very rooted in industrial times. I think everybody is a discretionary knowledge worker, and we got to sort of build for that more and more.
Absolutely. And do you think that, well, for sure, 1.5 years, the past 1.5 years, the gig economy has really taken off. Is that somewhere a threat to the whole concept of work culture? Because if people are not that intimately connected to an organization, does paying attention to the work culture even make sense? What do you think about that?
Actually, I do think that work culture has got nothing to do with your business model per se. So you can be a 100% gig force backed company, and you could still have a great culture. You could still nurture it like a community. You could still build build things in such a way that it makes it work for people. And I do think these are not mutually exclusive. We definitely want to see rise of more and more gig work, and that's not driven uh, solely by remote work. It's also driven by technology disruption. It's also driven by lack of uh, alternate opportunity. We haven't seen manufacturing grow in large parts of the world except China in a few decades now. So the process of job creation has fundamentally slowed down. We know teacher hiring, for example, is a big gap both in developed economies like US, but also in countries like India. Or hiring of therapists, for example, there's a huge need, but there are not enough opportunities, or there are not enough sort of commercial opportunities for these. So I do think that uh, a lot of this is dictated by technology and business disruption and shortening of business cycles. And if that is the case, then we will have to adopt a lot of these models. A car company, or a bike sharing company, or a company that's fundamentally built on good work can fundamentally be a great company. I mean, Unacademy announced teacher stock options yesterday. I mean, we're going to see a lot more of that. So culture is not opposite of gig, and I think we got to change that like a lot more. Of course, in an ideal world, everybody would have full-time jobs with a pension, but that is sort of not happening now. So the opportunities that are ahead of us are the opportunities we will have to build our organizations with.
Yeah, but it's really great to see these kind of innovative practices coming in, like you mentioned, the teacher stock options. I think
Yeah.
that's something really amazing, and we really hope that that makes a huge difference in terms of a higher number of a more tier two, tier three workforce being brought into the play. Um, yeah, Kriti, we hope that we were able to answer your question. In case you have a follow-up question, please do feel free to mention that in the comments. And I just want to remind everyone that we are watching the 13th episode of Wellness Changemakers Leadership Edition, in which our honored guest today is Sairee Chahal, who is the founder and CEO of SHEROES, which is the world's largest online ecosystem for women. If you have any questions for her, we're already receiving questions. Please do share your questions in the comment section, and we shall take them up in the next half an hour. Uh, since we were talking about leadership model, there was one question that we had received earlier, which was that, how do you continue to be friendly with employees without risking the loss of that respect for your command?
Um, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. You can be friendly, and you can also be a tough cookie. And look, I think respect is not something you can command. I mean, you got to earn it, and you earn it over a period of time with many things. Uh, but I do think in every relationship there are hues, there are different shades, and of course, you know, I think in every relationship there are non-negotiables. So knowing what are the non-negotiables, knowing what are the core values, what are things that we absolutely got to sort of be mindful of. But being, being friendly or being uh, authentic, I think the core is being authentic. I mean, it'll be very exhausting not being you, right, at the end of the day. And all of us are different. Some of us are shy, some of us are talkative, some of us are productive at certain point in time, some of us are happy to take charge, and some of us just want to do deep work. So I think it is important for all of us to be us, and of course have a framework that work, makes work happen for everyone. So I think to me authenticity is more closer home than anything else. Otherwise it would be very exhausting.
Absolutely. And exhaustion, we can't have a leader who's exhausted if we want the company to really function. Thank you so much for that, Sairi. I want to talk to you a little bit about psychological safety, right? So, could you tell us a little bit about the concept of psychological safety? Because not everyone might be very well acquainted with it.
Right. So look, I think to me psychological safety is it's a little bit of being able to let people be. I think at the end of the day, we all want to better ourselves, but we also don't want to let go of our core of who we are. And to me, I think letting people be in the space that they're most comfortable with, and that uh, allows them to be their authentic selves is important. And that also means that we offer them either the space or the time or or sometimes the effort to 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 let them be. I think fundamentally that's what I take away from the film. But at the end of the day, we all want to be trusted. We all want to be, we all want to be productive, or we want to be contributing in a meaningful way. As human beings, I think more than food and water, we're always looking for a safe space to land and meaning to our lives. Uh, and I think being able to uh, feel that I won't get judged here for my choices, and I can be myself, and I can still continue to take the moonshots that I might want to, is really like I think the way to uh, define this. Obviously, not an expert, but just sharing what my perspective is.
Ab- Absolutely. I wanted to share this. At this time, Davinder Kaur had commented on YouTube that more power to you, dear Sairi Chahal and Shiros. Thank you so much for the kind words, Davinder, and thank you so much for attending today. Um, we have another questions, but before I go to that question, I also want to ask you this thing about. I think, especially with psychological safety, that concept of safe space that you alluded to at the very beginning of the session comes into play. How do you, as a leader, provide that safe space to your employees? How can any leader really make sure that their employees feel psychologically safe at work?
Right. Someone take a little bit of an analogy here. It's like when you have teams, they never come and, I mean, they may come and talk to you, but they always feel better talking to their friends or talking to somebody who's not so close to them, because there is emotions involved. And I think when you have team members, then there is a definitive relationship, and there is a little bit of distance. Whether you like it or not, you might be really really close, but you're not in the same space. And I think your viewing points are very different. So one of the things we did very early on is we've always had actually a resident counselor. Even when we were a small company, we continued to have that. So a lot of difficult issues that honestly I'm not equipped to solve, and I don't think HR should, because in India HR is very tactical. Uh, I think again issues that are not sort of about my role in the organization and the next step and how do we handle certain challenges. I think things that are part of my life but need to be solved. So we've always had that culture where you could talk to a neutral person. In this case, our resident counselor, who's again, she's not part of the team like everybody else, you know, in a routine sort of a way. She's somebody who's there, but not not everywhere. So there is a little bit of framework that's involved here, and we've always had that, and we know that because nature of what we do, how psychologists and therapists also need to do their own sessions, like they need to go to talk to someone because they've been taking this from people and they've been sort of getting all this download, and they need to put down that burden as well. So we've been investing in that, I mean, forever actually, as long as we've existed. And we hope it works, and it seems to work from what I know.
Thank you. Guys, again, just a reminder that please do share any questions you may have for Sairee in the comment section. We will take them up. I think, Sairee, that or the one thing that personally stood out for me was and might be very important in creating that psychological safety is also a certain scale of modesty coming from the leader. Like I loved it when you said that I am not equipped to handle all the problems. I don't know how many leaders really ever, at least in the public eye, tend to admit that. So I would say that is another very strong part of. I'm really glad that Shiro's has that in the form of you as their leader. Uh, what are some of the ways in which you connect with your employees at a deeper level? Any practices that you have implemented maybe in the past 1.5 year or so, or even before, which have really helped you bond better and form that connection with your workforce, which has led to Shiro's touching the limits at the sky like it has.
Right. So I have to confess, I think we're not perfect, and in fact, we've also had missteps along the way. And but I think fundamentally, I believe in two things. One is we're all here because of a shared mission. So we do talk about that mission a lot. We do talk about. We find that time to talk, even in an online environment. Sometimes these are just little long Slack threads, but we are forever sharing how we feel about our work, how we feel connected, what we've learned today. We do a lot of this very, very open sharing. And that's what keeps us together like a lot. Second is, I think, as a founder, uh, I think opening communication lines with everyone is important. I have to confess, uh, I can't logistically do this with everyone all the time, but I can do it with some people some of the time. So I do try to make sure that anybody who wants to reach out or anybody who wants to have a chat or has an idea has an absolutely open line of communication. I think being responsive helps and being authentic helps. Uh, so I think that's what I've tried to do. And I think more than anything, the custodian of our mission is the team, right? Like, and they're closer to the user, they're closer to what we need to deliver on. So really, kind of recognizing that a lot more, and yeah, it's still a journey that's evolving. There's no right answer, I think, but the idea is to be your authentic self and let people be themselves.
That's really beautiful. And how has this really benefited you personally and your organization?
Well, I do believe we've had our own share of ups and downs, and we have a very, uh, very resilient team, and also mission-driven team. They know the long-term outcome and the impact of the work they do. They know what it means creating something that might become a playbook for rest of the world. So we're very cognizant of uh, our why, and we again talk about it as a team a lot. And my sense is that's really what keeps us going, and that's what sort of helps us thrive in all situations.
Really glad for that. This question had to come at some point. What is your inspiration? What keeps you going personally?
Well, my inspiration are all the women. Uh, of course, I've had the fortune to meet along in my journey. But my inspiration is really, I think, the Indian Mahila. I think there are so many women who are just invisible and all around us, and they're strong pillars. They're not asking for attention. They're not asking. They're just silently going about contributing, doing their jobs, and we all know that they are all like gems which can reach their potential. They're all people who will do so well if there was some amount of support, encouragement, resources available to them. So to me that thought is very, very compelling. And I mean I grew up in small town India. I come from a middle class family. I know women have a long way to go. I never let go of that fact.
Do you think this whole conversation around having an empathetic work culture is just a buzzword that we have right now because of the pandemic, and or do you think it will continue and it's here to stay?
Well, I think we're going to see the cracks. Like I think there is a lot of polishing and airbrushing of work cultures. Some very beautiful looking work cultures are very toxic underneath, or they're very complex, or they're very exhausting. uh, and of course I think uh, there is this rise of empathetic leaders worldwide. I think between Satya Nadella and Sundar Pichai, we are seeing a breed of non-macho, you know, introvert, empathetic leaders. And we hope to see more of that, because I think the world could do with more of that. For sure.
We have a question from Anuja, which is that I always find it easy to get inspired, but harder to stay inspired. Any advice on how to keep my motivation up throughout the journey?
Well, I'll say, don't try to lap it in buckets. Do it drop by drop. So the funnest part about motivation or inspiration is that it does run out. There's a saying that it's like having a bath, right? You do it every day. So uh, really, really small things every day is better than one big thing, one fine day. Uh, and whatever gets you to be consistent, it doesn't matter. I think if you can work on uh, and I think sometimes it's also being it's not working for you because maybe that's not your true inspiration, or maybe that's not uh, sticky enough for you. So do question your own belief system and your own motivations per se. But I would definitely think that most work in life is actually routine and boring. It's there's that Zen saying, right? Like, do dishes and meditate, and like make chai and clean the house, and it's still, I mean, everything at the end of the day is very mundane and routine and operational and very, very uh, non-inspiring. But the truth is, once you know why you do it, and uh, there's not a you're not doing it for the pressure of doing it. You're doing it because it just embedded in your life. So whatever helps you embed it into your little life is really the right way to do. I mean, there is no one fine day for inspiration. Uh, and we derive inspiration from different things. We derive our energy from different things. So like one measure I use all the time is it confidence inducing? Is it changing my energy for the better, or is it like not giving me the energy I like? So uh, I think ask yourself that question, and don't be so hard. It doesn't work, it doesn't work, something else will work.
Thank you. I think I needed that answer too as well. So thank you so much for sharing that. Um, I want to ask you this question that I ask every speaker every time. Off the top of your head, some books that you would recommend for our audience to read about leadership, to read about maybe work culture, empathy.
Right. So I do read like a very wide range of books. Um, I think one author I totally love is Byron Katie, obviously spiritual author. Then there is, of course, a lot of sports biographies. There is this whole series on leadership by Alex Ferguson. That's really like, I mean, it's literally a leadership manual. And then, of course, I think there's some amazing books on philosophy out there. Nothing beats uh, lessons in leadership than hardcore philosophy. I mean, I think the Romans and the Greeks knew this really really well. So don't shy away from the Platos and Aristotles. I know they don't sound very fashionable, but they're worth a read. They're definitely worth a read. And then, of course, I think there are some amazing contemporary writers like Atul Gawande, who's written the Checklist Manifesto and other books that he's done. There, of course, some again writers like Tim Ferriss who are very very new age and generation changing. And of course, I think I always tell everyone to read Invisible Women by Carol Ferris. It's a book that helps you shape your bias. I'm reading a book called Mother of Invention, which also is around how industrial world forgot to incorporate women into it. So again, two books that I totally have enjoyed reading many times over. Uh, and then of course, literature, read literature if you can. I've been uh, brought up on a diet of Russian literature, right from Dostoevsky to Gogol to Lermontov, and I totally enjoyed that. I think there's a lot of life lessons there, but more than I think lessons, we are also very result oriented these days, right? So just read because you enjoy reading it. So
I love that. Read because for the love of it, guys. Please do take that up. I think reading has been a lifesaver for many people in the past 1.5 years, in particular, and only makes you a better person. Um, I think I am. I have run out of questions. In case anyone in the audience has any more questions to ask, please do share them. Otherwise, we shall close this now. Um, Sairi, thank you so much for joining us today, and I know that we all learned a lot today, and we really hope that the success that you have seen, the success that Shiro's has seen, continues forever and ever. Any parting words for our audience, for the leaders of today and tomorrow?
Well, thank you for having me here. Thank you for making this happen. I'll just say, guys and folks out there, take care of yourself. Just breathe, right? Like the sky is not falling, like in the moment. It's all right. So be kind to yourself.
Be kind to yourself, or as at your those we like to say, be kind to your mind. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. We will be back same time next week at the same place. Our guest next week is Ms. Kupu Lakshmi Krishnamurthy, who is the global head of Zoho Startups, who we actually had the honor of having. She was attending today's session as well, because I know from a tweet that she herself greatly admires Sairi. So, Kupu, thank you so much for joining us today. And, we are really looking forward to the conversation next week. Thank you again, everyone. Have a very, very good night, and please stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.